The recording is in progress. Jeff, did you watch wrestling this week?
Ian, I did watch wrestling this week, and there I was. It's
Mhm.
Monday night. I'm
Yes.
watching wrestling. I've been told
Uh-huh.
there's going to be a big surprise featuring a
Uh,
former champion.
Former WWE champion. Yep.
And because it's wrestling, I'm like, oh, cool. We're going to bring out like Hulk Hogan or something, like some fool thing like this. And then, by God, that music hit. And I was like, yes, this is incredible. I'm so excited. I can't believe I haven't seen bah! And then it got going, and all of a sudden, The Rock showed up and ruined it.
I absolutely knew that's where you were going.
Yeah.
Don't hinder Jinder. I was so
Do
happy to see
not
Jinder.
hinder Jinder.
So happy to see good old Jinder Mahal back on WWE
I know.
television, setting up what I'm sure is a
Nothing.
WrestleMania main event with The Rock. I'm sure that's what they were leading to. The
Oh,
winner is
man.
the head of the table. Some other guy might be
Man, it
involved.
would be incredible if that's what it was. And they just played it totally straight the whole time. Just like, yeah, this was the plan. What are you guys talking about? Who? Roman what? No, 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 no. Um,
Like at some high stakes poker game, Triple H and Nick Khan lost a bet where they had to put Jinder Mahal in the main event against The Rock, and I was like, ah. But
uh, I
had
don't
they
know,
won,
man.
then Dana White would have had to have I don't know, put Hulk Hogan against
Yeah.
Israel Adesanya.
That sounds like a UFC fighter. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah,
It does
very
sound
good
like a
one. I
UFC
thought.
fighter. Yeah, I see Jinder Mahal. People are always like, Jinder Mahal, why would Jinder Mahal? Why? And I'm like, go back and watch that run
Yeah.
because essentially he's just Triple H with an accent. His
He
facial
was putting.
expressions, his costumes, his stance on things, even the way he carried the belt just looked like him doing a great Triple H impression. I'm like, this is brilliant. He finally got himself out of obscurity by just copying one of the best of all time and playing up to his ego. It's brilliant.
I liked
Triple
that
H is
it
watching
kept.
like, I like that gender kid.
I like that Jinder Mahal kept up the proud Canadian wrestling tradition of pretending to be from another country. Well, I
Yep.
mean, Jinder is he's Indo-Canadian.
Mhm.
But obviously they
He's
were
from
trying to.
Calgary.
He's from Calgary. Calgary. I was born and lived in Calgary. Well, you have to kind of do
Mm,
the same at the same time, right?
maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah.
mm.
And I've never been to India, but I got to tell you, I'm certain they're very different, very different places. But and the Bollywood boys who were
Yep.
they're from Burnaby,
Yep.
so
Yep.
it was kind of
British
like.
Columbia for those not in the realm.
So I think WWE was like, let's try and really, nail down this Indian market with these guys, but they just nailed down the Canadian market. It was like, yeah, all right, those are our guys from India.
Would it have been? And if I stray too far on this, feel free to either press the 10-second ahead button until you're done with it, or whatever, edit that. I don't care. But would there be something there of having a stable who were like trying to be guys that they're clearly not? You know what I mean? Like trying to be Indian guys, but are clearly not Indian.
Oh,
And that's their gimmick.
you could definitely do like a Hall of Fame of guys with sort of fake gimmick. Like when I say like the proud Canadian tradition of
Mm-hmm.
pretending to be from another country, like it used to be like the Vachons were
Yeah. Yeah.
Russians in so like French Canadian wrestlers were cast as Russians, which
Yeah.
like they're nothing alike, like just
Nope.
nothing. And if you go
Nope.
back and you watch Nikita Koloff, who I actually I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he was Quebec, but like he's not doing a Russian accent. He's doing a caveman accent. Like his understanding of Russians was that they, like, I am Nikita. Like no Russian has ever talked like that, ever.
Not even
Um,
Chekhov.
Um,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
well, I
the
mean, it's a long time thing in wrestling. You know, you're from where they say you're from. You know, for the longest time, even people that we know from Canada were billed as from elsewhere, just cause. And then people realize, wait, nobody cares where they're billed from. So let's just
yeah.
say where they are from. It's all good.
You know what I noticed though? When when they were introducing Adam Copeland and Christian Cage when they had
Mhm.
their match in Montreal. Christian was announced as being from Toronto, which got a lot
Mhm.
of boos because of the Montreal Toronto rivalry.
Yeah.
They didn't announce where Adam Copeland was from at all. They're like, let's just leave that out of his, and
Don't worry about it.
that's just such a wrestling thing, right? Like, we'll announce where you're
Yeah.
from. I don't know.
Mhm.
But
So,
a lot. Oh, yes.
someone's famous cousin finally showed up.
Yes. Someone's famous cousin finally showed up. A lot of people would view
Mhm.
that as like the bigger story over Jinder Mahal coming
Yeah,
back. I
okay.
disagree with those people, but you
It
can't
stands to
ignore
reason.
that they exist. By certain
Hey,
metrics, The
there's good
Rock is
people
more
on both
popular than
sides of
Jinder
that.
Mahal.
Yeah. Only by box office,
By
and
box
talent,
office, money,
merchandise,
yeah.
titles, probably the car. I don't know. But
Probably happiness. The Rock seems like a happy guy. I'm not saying Jinder isn't, but The Rock has
yeah.
everything. So,
It is interesting though to see The Rock come back. And of course, this is all just wonderful conjecture. We could be 5 years away from this match the way that things go with The Rock sometimes. But it is interesting to see The Rock come back to wrestling now
yeah.
because The Rock and John Cena were all kind of like, yeah, let's go do wrestling when
Mhm.
the actress strikes were on. And once those ended, John was like, I gotta go. And Rock was like, I was never here. And they kind of moved on from it. So to see him back doing
Yeah.
this, you know, and it's not just a matter of like, oh yeah, he was in town, so we convinced him to come out and beat up Baron
Yeah.
Corbin or whatever. Like this was planned, this was promoted as a surprise, but it was promoted, you know, so they had to feel pretty confident that they had this booked. And I think you don't play with a toy as expensive as The Rock without having that sort of assuredness that something's going to come out of it, you know? Because if The Rock, and it could also be like, and it would be totally amazing if it was, by the way, that The Rock just did it on his own. He was supposed to just come in and do a hi, how are you? And then he just dropped that line, and everyone backstage was like,
Like decades
the
of
hell do
being
we
The
do
Rock.
now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they've probably come to some agreement about doing The Rock versus Roman Reigns because you can't tease it like that and then not do it. Um, so one of the questions this brings up is how this affects
Now you
Cody
have frozen
Rhodes's.
on my end of the conversation.
Oh, your picture's
So
frozen, but I hear you fine. Are you able to hear me?
my
Okay.
internet connection has resumed now.
Ah,
So you were
our
saying,
connection
and I
has been
quote,
restored. Mhm.
you were saying, and I quote, now they've probably come to some kind of deal about Roman Reigns versus The Rock.
Yes, I feel confident in that assumption. Uh, so why now? I would
Mhm.
have to say I think why now because The Rock's 50 and
Mhm.
you got to do it at some point because every year that goes by,
Mhm.
you're 1 year older. Uh, Barring any
That is how
time
time
travel that may
works.
have
Yes.
occurred. Uh, so, so I think it might be a case of like, all right, if we're gonna do something, we better do it now.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing to consider is Nick Khan and The Rock are like childhood friends.
I heard that.
That's weird how that worked out. He went in and he became a
Yeah.
big time talent agent, and like he was, and then he ends up working with WWE, and
Mhm.
obviously I mean, he's at the very tippy top of that organization,
Mhm.
and is sort of credited with doing a lot of like bringing a lot of sponsorship and revenue
Yeah.
and
I
you know
do blame him for dancing cinnamon toast crunches at ringside though.
yeah, you got to take
So
the good with the bad.
yeah, he does have a minus in that regard. But yeah.
But you know what? If they take that cinnamon toast crunch money and use it to pay The Rock to come back, hey, maybe this entire thing is being facilitated by those dancing toast crunch mascots.
It's
But
possible.
yeah.
Weirder
But
things have happened.
oh, in wrestling,
Yeah.
tremendously
Like
weirder things have happened.
last month. I mean,
Um, so like one of the big issues with The Rock and Roman Reigns, okay, if you're doing Rock
Mhm.
Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, what does this mean for Cody and finishing his story? I mean, does
Yeah.
it, and we've
Uh,
talked on this show before about how I don't think The Rock's gonna beat Roman Reigns. I still think Cody's gonna
no.
be the guy that beats Roman Reigns, but what happens over the next do you do it in
Yeah.
2 years? What happens? What's the schedule here?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you do it like WrestleMania to WrestleMania, which I could totally see them doing,
You
but
don't have to do
you know,
that, but
you
that
don't have
that
to, but
you
I
know.
could see them doing it that way. But
Mhm.
like, if you look at it from, if I'm Cody and I'm like, oh man, I was maybe gonna finish that damn book this year, um, but The Rock's here, and then I look at it and I say, okay, if he beats The Rock,
Mhm.
that puts him on a level of a champion that there's never been before,
Yeah.
like ever. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And for Cody to then be the one to beat Roman, does that shoot him past that even?
Well, I think that would
You know?
be the aim, right? Like kind of the like sort of like when they had Brock Lesnar beat Undertaker's streak. The
Mhm.
idea was Brock Lesnar through the power of Highlander takes Undertaker's power, like that
Yeah.
streak, he was the one to beat it. So all of that
Wouldn't it be amazing if he was like, "It's my streak now. I'm 21 and 0."
but it just makes him, like, oh, he beat the streak. He's better than the streak. So what a huge accomplishment it would be to beat Brock Lesnar. And eventually Roman Reigns would be the guy to do that. So it was kind of like, they passed Undertaker's streak on to Roman Reigns through Brock Lesnar. So Roman beating Rock and then Cody beating Roman. Yeah, the idea is you strap a rocket to Cody Rhodes and you make him the next John Cena. And I noticed you're frozen again. Hmm. Perhaps I'll.
I think
Ah.
it's Ian. Ooh,
All right. Sorry, technical difficulties there. I'm
it
not sure
seems
how
like
much
it.
of I'm not sure how much of that got picked up there, but basically what I was saying is, yeah,
Sorry. Did you hit? You did. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
yeah.
I missed the little
So,
recording is on button. So I wanted.
um, so yeah,
Mm,
so Roman beats Rock, then
yes.
Roman's an even bigger deal, and then maybe Roman passes that
Mhm.
Hulk Hogan record or whatever. Um, so it's just making him the bigger foe for Cody to then topple, with the idea then
Mhm.
that Cody would become an even bigger star than he is now, sell lots of t-shirts, sell lots of tickets, make everyone lots of money, take that money, exchange it for goods and services, lead a good quality of life,
Some kind of
learn to appreciate non-materialistic items and the things that money can't buy. And yeah, that's sort of where that goes.
hopefully remove or get a matching neck tattoo.
um
Mm. Did you hear the story
yeah,
about that, by the way, that came out recently?
that he didn't expect it to be as large as it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
still a neck tattoo. Like, what were
I'm
you
like,
expecting?
okay, I
Hmm.
know a few things about the tattoos. Never in my life, and I've been getting tattooed since I was not 17. Never in my life have I seen anyone get a tattoo on like, their elbow or something like that without rushing to the mirror to make sure that it looks okay before the guy does it. Any
Yeah.
tattoo artist worth his salt will make sure you do that. So to do it on your neck and just be like, yeah, it'd be fine. Like my God, like how busy are you?
I don't know what was going on with Cody at that time, but I mean, he was making poor decisions all over the place, really.
Yeah. Cody's neck tattoo is up there. It is on my Mount Rushmore of wrestling looks, along with Vince's mustache. pants tucked into jeans and fanny
Oh,
packs with spaghetti strap tank tops.
yeah, I remember when the British Bulldog came back to WWE in like 1999 or
He
something like
crossed
that.
off 3 of those.
Yeah, yeah. The G Davey Boy Smith and Owen Hart really were some fashion icons back in the day.
Oh my
Like
god. Sting too is up there.
Sting, yeah,
Yes, if you
absolutely.
look at some like candid Sting shots from the 90s, scary. Scary. And not like a drop from the ceiling kind of scary, like in a gross kind of scary.
Like
Anyway, yeah,
yeah. um,
Cody should
but I
beat
wonder, like,
The Rock.
does Cody have to beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, or could he do it at
Mhm.
SummerSlam?
That is the question. And it's just a matter of how long they want to extend Roman's title. I mean, they're probably looking at it also. Well, they're probably looking at it as like, you know what? Everything's fine. Anyone who's like not having Roman on the show is going to hurt it is clearly not paying attention because it hasn't. And when he
Yeah.
comes on, he spikes the ratings and so on and so forth. So I could see there being a pretty strong argument for like just let it go. We'll pick it up with Cody. We'll start a new program with them, at SummerSlam or something and give it a nice big build to the next WrestleMania. But yeah, they just let it work for another year. It's fine.
Well, the other thing is, so WWE is it like eventually they're going to announce a TV rights deal for Raw. They've already done it for
Mhm.
SmackDown, and these TV rights deals go for 5 years, and they're the major revenue source. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like when a player on a sports team signs a big contract and then shows up into training camp maybe out of shape because he
Mhm.
knows he doesn't have to play super good for another 5 years till his contract's up. To a certain extent, they can kind of phone it in for a few years and it's not going to
Yeah.
impact their business all that much. Um,
Mhm.
but then the another thing to consider is they are doing all these big international shows where they're actually
Yes.
getting paid by the government to come in and do it. So, uh, Australia has the Elimination Chamber in February.
Mhm.
Australia, like the entire country, or probably just representatives for it, uh, requested that The Rock be on the show.
Mhm.
And at the time when that story came out, WWE had apparently told the Australian government, like, I don't know if that
They're
can
like,
happen,
no.
but maybe it has, and so there's some thought to the idea that The Rock faces Roman at the Elimination Chamber,
Hmm.
and then that leads to something at WrestleMania.
And
They
where
got to
Cody
try and
finishes the story.
Cody finishes the story at WrestleMania. I
Yeah.
don't know
Hmm.
based on fan reaction if you can how much longer you can drag out Cody finishing his story without it starting to hurt Cody a little bit.
Yeah, well, no, I
I
mean,
mean,
I know wrestling moves at sort of faster than normal time speeds sometimes,
yeah,
in terms of its storylines and stuff. But I don't, Cody finishing the story, I think it's something you can jump in and out of. Like, I feel like it's kind of like how I feel that every wrestler's number one goal should be to win the title.
yeah,
That's always going to be their goal, but they're going to do other things along the way. It's like a river and tributaries.
yeah, yeah.
So I feel like you can do that. And I think that, wow, like, first of all, to put a match like The Rock versus Roman Reigns on, like, at Elimination Chamber. Are you serious? Like,
Yeah, but
that is a little insane. But
it's a
you could also
stadium
have,
of like 100,000 people.
yeah, well,
That's a lot of
it is,
people.
but it's still Elimination Chamber. And it's still a story. It's still a show that a large portion of your market too isn't going to watch live, right?
That's true. It's going to start at like 4:30 in the morning. But what
Yeah.
if the government of Australia was like, money's not an issue here. Let's put The Rock on the show. Like, what if this is crippling the Australian economy to do? And like, there's just
I'm
one guy who has
I'm
way
fine
too
with it.
much power and is the biggest Rock fan. Like, I mean, whatever gets The Rock back in a wrestling ring, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
But
I could see them doing something like they did with him and Cena, where like he was in a tag match at Survivor
Yeah.
Series,
Yeah.
and then that was sort of I don't know, that's sort of like a teaser, but like a taste of like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, The Rock's pretty good at this, isn't he? And I could see them doing something like that in Australia.
Hmm.
That'd be cool. And it'd be the kind of thing where like, The Rock teams up with, I don't know, what's Nunzio doing? Um
Hey man, Nunzio's actually popped up a few places. You remember?
Weird. It'd be like him and CM Punk. Wow, that would be mind blowing. Something like that. Versus Roman and Seth Rollins,
Yeah.
or something like, or a member of the bloodline and Seth Rollins, but Roman's gonna be there looking sternly over his shoulder at Paul Heyman while Paul Heyman tries not to poop. I don't know what he's doing back then. Yeah.
It's
Uh,
probably happened once or twice.
at least.
He's had a
I
long
guess,
career. At some point, he's probably had to poop during a promo.
yeah,
I
and
almost
then
for sure.
The Rock would get the pin on the Bloodline member, and they cut to Roman doing this. You know, but yeah, I could see them doing something like that. It all depends. Also, like The Rock would have had to have committed to an almost weekly schedule to really get this thing going.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
I don't know how many times he's gonna be on shows leading up to Mania or leading up to the Elimination Chamber. It would be cool. Like, I would love to get some face-to-face promos between Rock and Roman Reigns. When we
yeah,
get those will be epic.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
And they
like
could do it the way they did it with Cena too, where he wasn't there every week.
yeah.
It wasn't the focus every week. Cena still had like side feuds and still did
Mhm.
his own thing or whatever. Um, but they can do it just kind of, maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks or so, to remind everyone, like, oh yeah, they're building to this. Like this is coming too, isn't it?
Mhm.
And that might work as well. But I do, especially since they haven't announced anything concrete or even announced like, hey, The Rock's going to be at the Royal Rumble. Isn't that weird? You know, like they haven't set sort of a date to really start this feud. So I'm
Yeah,
kind of
well,
leery about them trying to jam in or spread things too thin.
yeah. Um, I'm assuming that we don't get Rock every well, I'm
Yeah.
sure we won't get Rock every week, but you could kind of do the same thing that they've done with Roman. Like when Roman's not
Mm,
on the show, well, you still have Heyman and Solo Sikoa who are kind of like his representatives.
yeah. Yeah.
And if this is going to be, the Bloodline Civil War,
Mhm.
maybe The Rock and Jey Uso form some type of
Yep.
alliance, and then Jey Uso is sort of representing The Rock on
Yeah.
shows
Yeah.
where The Rock's not there.
I
You
forgot
know,
about the Usos. You're right.
the Usos. There you
That makes
go.
more sense than the weird little half canon that I cobbled up.
It could even be both Usos because
Hmm.
Jimmy Uso. Well, technically back in the Bloodline on SmackDown, I don't sense a lot of trust in this
Mm.
relationship.
So much trust just leaking out their ears. It's unbelievable. Uh, but yeah, and how like I know he's biting his tongue and playing nice with everyone like a good boy because he really needs to do that now to avoid more lawsuits. But CM Punk
Hmm.
must have just been sitting in the back like, what the fuck is going on here? The Rock again? You know?
He's got his stress ball that Nick
He's just
Khan
like,
gave him.
yeah.
Okay. They tell me to breathe. I'm not being disrespected. Nobody's disrespecting me.
He's
I
like, I
still
was
make
supposed to be
tons
the
of
big
money.
surprise. I was supposed to be the big surprise. What is going on here? Yeah, that's
Well,
got.
you know what though? He didn't really get his spot taken because I think the
Yeah,
idea is it's Punk and Seth Rollins, which is, the B story, and the A
yeah.
story was gonna be Roman Reigns and Cody, but now it's looking like Rock and Roman Reigns.
Mhm.
So,
Which is
the guy
interesting.
who's losing out is Cody. It feels like
Um, maybe
he's
they make him
now a guy
special
without a
guest
program.
referee.
Wow, this is like, what's he gonna do? Win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal?
I hope so.
But he's
Like
in a
single handedly too, just like so easily, and him being like, "Yeah, that's how easy this is." I'm
But
very
it
good at wrestling.
Well, it seemed like that they were trying to really hammer home that Cody Rhodes is really good at wrestling, like immediately after he lost to Roman Reigns, because they had him go into that 3-match series with Brock Lesnar, and he ended up winning 2 matches to one. I think it was like a ref stoppage or something because he had a broken
Yeah.
arm, the only match he lost. So he didn't really lose. Like, I don't think Cody's been pinned or submitted since Roman did it.
No.
So it
No.
seemed like they were booking him with the idea that, all right, WrestleMania, you're going to finish the story again. And now this is a monkey wrench in that. So do you just have Cody continue to beat everybody up until next year's WrestleMania? Or I don't know what's going to happen.
You take that shot of CM Punk with his stress ball and you pan out ever so slightly to see Cody over his shoulder just furiously chain smoking. But hey, wouldn't it be fun to see Cody and CM Punk teaming up to wreak a little havoc on the WWE for not following through on their promises? I
You know
wouldn't
what I
hate that
love
story.
on another Cody note. I
Cody
like
Notes brought to you by Always.
I've really enjoyed his feud with Shinsuke Nakamura. And I loved how when Nakamura was reading the American Nightmare Before Christmas, which was just tremendous. Just I loved every second of it. I went back and I watched it again. I might even watch it again later tonight. I enjoyed
It
it
will
so
become
much.
a Christmas tradition.
But I just, I loved he was doing the thing, and then Cody attacked him in the back, and I couldn't help notice that there might have been a bit of an analogy there, as in Nakamura was not allowed to finish his story. Cody wouldn't let him finish his story. He had written this nice book, and he wasn't allowed to finish it. No.
Cody just starts wandering around the back, slapping books out of people's hands. Like,
It's
no,
it's like nobody, if nobody can finish their story, I'm not going to let anybody finish their books. He's like ripping the last pages out of John Grisham's and whoever famous novelists are these days.
I hear there's some out there that make money writing books. I don't know who they are, but
I only read Star Wars books and books by wrestlers at this point. So
yeah, I recently tried to read a book that wasn't about Star Wars or wrestling, and it didn't go well.
no, there's no point. There's no point to it. You're just
I
reading
think I got
words
about
and retaining
like
information. Fuck that. Fuck that
like
shit.
40 pages in or something, and I was like, this is boring. Nobody's kicked anyone in the head or smoked a joint while driving a giant Cadillac in Texas,
Oh,
which sounds like it should be a novel.
I want to make sure we got this in. So at
Mm.
World's End, AEW World's End, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, he went a solid year as AEW World Champion. He was defeated by Samoa Joe.
It's gone haywire again.
Oh no, is it? Are you able to hear it?
There I go. No,
You're fine on my end.
Am I
So,
okay? Because you're like frozen, like vocal.
well,
Yeah,
are you able to hear me?
I am.
Okay.
What if I
Oh,
do that?
hello.
Ah,
Is that better? I can hear you
no.
perfectly.
All right. Sorry. You were saying I want to get this in.
All right. Well, I want to get this in. Samoa Joe beating MJF for the
Mm.
AW World Championship at World's End. Fairly significant development in the world of
Yeah.
AEW. MJF is going to have to take a long time off. He's apparently
So much
accumulated.
so they've pulled him off the roster page, of the website.
Yeah, well, we'll see that. I feel like that's probably more storyline than anything else. Because he's been saying all this stuff about the bidding war of 2024 and WWE. I'm gonna sign with them, so I imagine he's gonna do some little Vince Russo style work shoot free agency thing. All right, but
Okay. No, actually, no, it's not all right. Max, take some time off, heal up, and come back good. You're good. We're fine. We've loved the last year. It's been terrific. We will hold it in our hearts dearly. I will think the Triple B is the best that belt has ever looked.
Mhm.
Let's just let you heal up and come back when it's time.
Well, I think this does mark the closing of a chapter in in MJF's story that he may get to finish one day.
He just shows up in
but
WWE with a half-finished book, like, and hands it to Cody. Like,
but look at this character arc that AEW crafted for MJF because it's actually really brilliant. Um, so I like you can even throw in like he comes into AEW, he's a huge asshole, runs into CM Punk, is like, you were my hero, and then you quit. Fuck you. This is super bitter,
yeah.
goes into other things, and then he makes a friend. Oh, he makes a friend in Adam Cole, but a lot of friends in MJF's past, maybe they picked on him or they bullied him or they left him like his hero CM Punk, but this guy here, Adam Cole, well, I think he actually cares about my well-being. And it changed MJF, right? So being friends with Adam Cole, that was an arc. He was here. And then all of a sudden he was like, well, wait a second. Maybe I can have friends. Maybe I do like the wrestling fans. Maybe I'll be their scumbag. And it was this
Yeah.
nice little story about the Grinch growing a heart. But then what happens? Oh, that person
The
that
literal
caused the
Christian
Grinch's
devil.
heart to grow 3 sizes that day and cause a serious cardiac event in the process. That, it turned out that guy, well, he was the devil in disguise. And he, like just the whole idea of MJF finally letting his guard down, being friends with someone, because wrestling loves friendships,
Oh yeah.
and to be scorned, to finally think he has a friend, but then that friend turns out to stab him in the back. And now when MJF does come back in like 6 months or wherever,
Yep.
he's gonna be such an asshole because he's gonna be like the same thing that CM Punk did to him. We're taking, Adam Cole has taught his character now. Okay, don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody at all. DTA, Steve Austin. So MJF's gonna come back and he's gonna be diabolical, and it's
He's
gonna
gonna
start a new.
puke.
He's gonna puke. He's gonna puke. If you haven't seen Beyond the Mat, that you would have no idea what we were doing.
You'd think it was hilarious if you had, though. So
So I think this represents a real, like the closing of one chapter, but then we're waiting on this new chapter, a new version of MJF that has more bitterness in his heart, who has more, like just that. I think it was fantastically done. So
true. So do you have MJF now? He's gone for, we'll say, 6 months, just as a ballpark.
Sure. I like it's just throwing out a number.
We'll say 6 months. During those 6 months, do you have Adam the Devil Cole and his group of friends, the Devil's friends, minions, run roughshod over AEW and then have MJF return as a conquering hero who then turns on his fans for being like, you jerks, I saved you now, even though you're being mean to me? Or do you have him just like come back and just straight up be an asshole?
I think you can do both. I think AEW has sort of set the tone where
then.
you don't. I think AEW has set the tone. Like, look, the Blackpool Combat Club, they're baby faces when they're baby faces and they're heels when they're heels. Yep. So I don't think you have to have one person be the stand up for what's right kind of baby face. It's just one person who wants revenge on another guy. And like, it's just two assholes colliding. Yeah. Wrestling can handle just two assholes colliding. I
think the internet just kicked us off.
So he could come back. Like, I don't think he could come back and be like, it's like, I don't know. It's a different kind of scissor.
The Acclaimed and Daddy Ass are like, what the hell?
Even we won't do that.
Like,
all right, everybody.
I don't want to see the trios belts for that.
Billy Gunn's like, why am I not retired? I need to stop lifting weights and just chill out. What the hell am I doing?
as a total tangerine here.
Uh,
Um, if you're not following Billy Gunn's wife on TikTok,
really?
she just posts videos of him like being a sad sack at home. And they're like sadly playing with his cats or being grumpy about having to go to the grocery store and shit. Like, it's very, very funny to see this gigantic hulking man that you know as Mr. Ass in these everyday situations. It's quite entertaining.
Oh,
Uh,
that's why he's still wrestling. It's like in his house, he's the errand boy. Like, oh,
he's,
you
yeah,
know.
he's like the
Yeah.
two kids that I got wrestling haven't really gone anywhere yet, so guess I got
Well,
to
no,
keep doing
they're doing
this.
it. They're in Bullet Club Gold. They won the tag titles. I don't think they're making as much money as Billy, but
No, no, that's
maybe
got to
they'll
be a
get there.
this has got to be a weird thing to go to work every day and know your dad's making more money than you, and also that it's all centered around his ass, and he's not Rikishi,
And the fans keep calling you ass boys.
and yet the Usos escaped this.
Oh yeah.
Rikishi's their dad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they could also be ass boys technically.
All right.
To
They could
Uso.
be.
I don't know where we're going with that, but anyway,
Um, I don't
yeah.
even know if I want to talk about this Chris Jericho story because
Oh,
there's
we got
really
to
no
do
good
that.
information. I think we
Well,
have to address it.
here's the only not good but neutral part of it
Okay.
is that nothing has been proven,
Nothing's even really been alleged.
right?
It's
So it's
all
like
just
right now we're just
people.
hearing these rumors, and it's like, what's that about? Whereas if someone had come straight forward and been like, yes, this happened and he did this to me and that to you and so on
Mm,
and so forth, it'd be a little harder to be like, oh. But, you know, right now it's still in the rumor stage, and
hmm
unfortunately, in these situations where there's smoke, tends to be fire. And so even the hint of an allegation against someone is important,
Yeah.
and it's important to be followed through on. It's important to be believed, and it's important to be checked out.
hmm
So I think the majority of people know that, because in these situations there's usually people who kind of sit up and like, well, it's someone with an axe to grind, or of course they're lying about that, they want his millions, or something fool like that. And it's like, no, no, that doesn't really hold water, because enough people understand how these things work now that people are reticent to try and run a scam like that. And people that are doing stuff like that don't want it coming out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hate that this is happening. I
Yeah.
hate that. I hate that it involves I hate that it's happening. Period. Full stop. But also, I hate
Yeah.
that it involves Jericho, who'd always kind of been known as a fairly okay guy.
I guess,
Backstage, like
yeah.
a little prickly, but otherwise, he's what he
Yeah.
is. Um, and it just here's the thing about Jericho, and this is just a personal preference thing. If you get mad at someone, you get mad at me, and I will totally not read your comments or give it a second thought. But um, ever since I learned that Chris Jericho is a big supporter of Trump, and he had Trump's kid on his podcast, and he
Yeah.
he has donated to Trump campaigns, and we've seen this. Nothing about him has really surprised me much anymore. It was
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
like he was undefinable, and then he put himself in this box that I was like, okay. And in a way, it's almost like I figured this was coming. I didn't, but in a way, it's kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, I readily admit that I am not smart enough to know, uh, the best way for situations like this to be handled. Um, I know when there is like sort of an
Mhm.
allegation or a rumor, because in this case, it is just sort of people connecting certain dots on Twitter and
Yep.
then kind of forming a narrative. But it was enough that he got booed
Yeah.
um, on the World's End show. And so it has crossed that threshold to where, all right,
Mhm.
this is impacting. Like, it's not like, you know, where it's a rumor, but then
Yeah.
you go to the shows and everybody's cheering for him or anything like that. This had an impact on the actual show. And you know, as Chris
Yeah.
Jericho wasn't on the show on Wednesday either. Wednesday,
And
as in
Tony
yesterday.
Khan's deflection as well
Yeah,
did
yeah.
not do much to quell things, but
So to me, that reaction means it's crossed a threshold to where it's news,
mhm.
and it's something to that needs to be addressed. But
Mhm.
I can certainly understand Tony Khan. Like Tony Khan, for those of you who have followed this guy in interviews,
Yeah.
little guarded in what he says. Not surprised
Well,
at all that he was a
he
little
may
guarded.
maybe making a big announcement on Dynamite, but um that'll have
But
nothing to do with this. But
I think another thing that sort of like impacts this a lot, like so Kylie Ray had reacted to a thread that had talked about Chris Jericho possibly not being great. And you
the
know,
term Weinsteining was thrown around.
yeah, and she put a little heart next to a thing. So a lot of people kind of connected a few dots, some that
Mhm.
might have been there, some that weren't, um, about how, you know, so Kylie Ray's story in AEW is she was there at the very beginning. Then there was radio silence for a while, and then she was gone from the company. So I think some people then kind of said, okay, something happened between Chris Jericho and Kylie Ray. That's why Kylie Ray's not in the company, and yada yada yada. Um, so you know, it's one of these things where it's like, if that rumor is true, then it's like I don't like Chris Jericho anymore. But I don't
Right.
know. I don't know if I have enough to believe that rumor. Like I don't know
Yeah.
how to feel. I don't know how to feel.
Oh, it's a tough thing to know how to feel about, like, every time this happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I don't mean that in terms of like, oh, I don't know how to feel about sexual assault. No, I know how to feel about that. I know that
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
wrong and it is shit. Victims are to be believed, and
Yeah.
every report needs to be taken seriously. And there is nobody who is above that approach. Nobody.
Mhm.
And but it's the silence between the rumor and the, like, we're looking into it, that
Yeah.
is concerning to me.
Yeah.
You know, like if Tony Khan had come out at the press conference, you know, especially after seeing him get booed and been like, look, there's been rumors. We take everything like this very, very seriously. We will be looking into it, and I will update you when there is more information.
Yeah.
It
I
goes
would have
away.
preferred that.
You know,
Yeah.
it goes away until they are ready to be like, okay, here it is. You know, and if in that time, you know, it causes, because sometimes people see that and they say that's not enough, and it brings other people forward, and suddenly, you know, things snowball and the truth comes out. Um, you know, and it gives AEW a chance as a company to protect itself, which
Mhm.
they are probably looking to do because they don't need this on their rap sheet, you know,
They've been
and
known to
like,
try and protect themselves. Right.
well, exactly. And so part of, I think, the radio silence of it all, particularly from AEW, I think maybe because they're looking at how they need to get those ducks in a row,
Yeah.
either for a denial or a, you know, support. But like, if true, Chris,
Yeah, like what the
like,
fuck?
not
That's
just
no yeah,
disappointing as a human being,
yeah.
but like disappointing as that you needed this.
Yeah,
Like,
like what the
is your
hell,
life
man?
like, you
You're a
are a
rock star. You go
cornerstone?
around on
Like,
tour. Like why would you do it, you know?
it just, it's one of those things that if you look, it's like a good con or a good
Mhm.
scam, like a Ponzi scheme or something like that. If you look into the root of men and women that do those kinds of things,
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, you find out there is literally no reason for them to have started doing it. And it just got out of control and it just became this big thing. But they did it just because they felt they could.
It's
and to sort of apply that to this, it's like you don't need that,
but I
and she
think
definitely doesn't need that.
if well,
So
yeah.
like get your head out of your ass and either stand up and be like, yep, some untoward things happened and I will deal with the consequences, or say, no, it didn't happen. We will get the story straight. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we will figure out how to make this right. Like, but leaving that radio silence in between, it's nothing but it just fills with rumor and innuendo. And next thing you know, people are convicted in the court of public opinion, either on the victim or perpetrator side.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. The timing of how all this worked
Mm.
is interesting. And I'm not making any statement about it, but here is the timing of everything as I understand it. So Stephen P. New, who was the lawyer for CM Punk and Ace
Mm-hmm.
Steel in this little hullabaloo that has caused a bunch of drama.
It has haunted us for like 3 years now.
So he's doing sort of like a podcast now, and he is answering some questions about the case. I've listened to it a little bit. He doesn't really say much though, and he'll be quick to say like, I can't break any NDAs here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things he said is that everybody involved is subject or signed like an NDA except for Ace Steel's wife. Then Chris
Right.
Jericho at like 4 a.m. on Christmas Eve decides, hey, fuck Stephen P. New, and sends him a message going, guess what? I didn't. And then goes on about, actually, I've got the sort of the thing here. Well, whatever. You can find it. I'm sure he's still got it up there.
Yeah.
Basically saying like, what I'm not held to any NDA, and what I saw was disgusting. And then Stephen P. New was like, thank you, Chris. We will attach this tweet as Exhibit A. And then Stephen P. New and Chris Jericho, well, Stephen P. New's been heard from, but Chris Jericho hasn't said anything since. And just an advice to everyone that I didn't think had to be said: don't fuck with lawyers, especially over legal things, because you know who don't have to pay for legal expenses? Lawyers. They can do it forever. They're just paying themselves. Chris, that was a bad move. So now I'm not saying there's a correlation here. I'm not saying anything about there being a correlation, but things took a turn for Chris Jericho not long later. And there's a few connections here. So Nick Hausman is the CM Punk camp sort of, I don't want to say dirt sheet guy, but you'll understand what I mean when you say dirt sheet guy. So he's the reporter that is well known to have ties to the CM Punk camp. He then goes on his podcast, because everyone has a podcast. Well, we have a podcast. And so he says, look, Chris Jericho, I don't like him. I think he's a bad guy. He's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. I don't know why he would think it's a good idea to talk so freely when there's some things that could come out about him. Then all these rumors go crazy. Kylie Ray puts the heart there. That to many people like confirmed the allegations, right? In the Twitter world, that's concrete smoking gun evidence. So are those things connected? Like, did all of that happen because Chris Jericho pissed off Stephen P. New on the, because Stephen P. New, there's a 1-degree connection from Stephen P. New to Nick Hausman. And also, Nick Hausman's Chicago-based. CM Punk's Chicago-based. I'm not saying she had anything to do with it, but Kylie Ray is also based out of Chicago. So could all of these guys have decided, hey, if Chris Jericho's going to fucking say shit to us, when we know he's got these skeletons in his closet, he's had people sign NDAs, what can we say that won't violate any NDAs that maybe, allegedly, I'm not saying happened, I'm covering my butt, but maybe that Kylie Ray signed? Is there a way for us to sort of facilitate this narrative without breaking an NDA? I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying the timing seems like these two things could be related. Maybe they're
not.
The
timing is a little suspect. It's one of those things that I feel like you would have to have that plan kind of ready, though. Like, it's very complicated. I feel like you would have to have that kind of plan ready, like as if like one day I'm gonna have to use this, when he goes too far or steps over a line or something. I don't know. It's
Do you think maybe CM? I'm not saying CM Punk was involved, but like, I, I I don't know. Maybe they did have it ready.
maybe, maybe
Maybe I don't
I,
know.
I don't know. You were right about one thing, and that is that everyone has a podcast, and that is true of everything now. Like
Yeah,
when I first started doing podcasts, I was working in radio. It was like 2007. There was 4 of us.
yeah,
And they were all comic book podcasts. It was weird. But now everyone and their dog has a podcast, and some of them are treated like CNN. Like
yeah,
things will be leaked to them, or special stuff will be revealed on them. This kind of thing. So this does 2 things. One, it gives people access to a gigantic echo chamber,
yeah.
because everyone just feeds into the other. Like one person says
Mhm.
it, boom, 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 and they all give hat tips, and they, this kind of thing. And 2, it allows for people who may not understand how things work when you talk about stuff like this,
Mhm.
the airwaves, and access to everyone on the planet.
Yeah,
And so a guy like this lawyer who knows the things you can and cannot say
yeah,
is just waiting to pounce. And it's like, it's so complicated, and it's just one more thing about wrestling that I wish I didn't know, or I didn't have to know.
yeah.
Like, why do I need to know all these legal hoops to be able to follow this story? Like, it's upsetting, and I don't know. The world is such a bummer that
Yeah.
I come to wrestling to be like, let's fight men in tight pants, and they do, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's weird, and then stuff like this happens, and you're just like, oh, they're human too, and
Yeah, you know.
it's when wrestling gets a little too real, so
Yeah,
to
well,
speak.
it's like wrestling's supposed to be fun, right? So when something happens that's very much not fun,
Hmm.
you know, it takes your fun. All right.
All right.
Okay. So
Oh.
trying out something new here. We're going to do I believe this is kind of what they do on those sports shows like Pardon My Take or something like that, where
Yeah.
you've got kind of like a timer. So you've got a
Right.
certain amount of time to talk about something. So you can't just go off on tangents like we do.
I think this will be good for us.
Yes, a little structure. So
Uh,
I've got a bunch of tabs open on my
okay.
computer, probably slowing down the recording as a result of all the top news stories minus
Hmm.
the 3 top stories that we talked about earlier. So,
Okay.
all
So
right.
before we begin this, let's set some
Mhm.
parameters. Okay.
Let's set some parameters.
How long are we going to spend on each one of these?
I think we can do 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Okay.
Yeah,
I am going to set a 90-second timer.
nice.
I am. Thank you.
It's got to be a way to do
And
that too, but there's not.
and what I will do
Mm-hmm.
is I'll be the timekeeper.
Okay.
You be the headline reader.
Okay. Sounds good.
That almost rhymes.
All right. So are we ready to go?
Count us in.
3, 2, 1. All right. So Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks. There had been a lot of
Mm.
rumors that she was going to go back to WWE. She had been posting some things to her social media accounts that like she posted a picture of her in a ring and there was a picture of Triple H behind her. So a lot of people took that as a sign that she was coming back to WWE. However, Fightful Select is reporting that talks between WWE and Sasha Banks are no longer taking place. They were too far apart on money. WWE sources now expect her to debut somewhere else imminently. What do
All
we
right,
feel about this?
here we go. Okay, so Mercedes Moné back in WWE would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think we can all agree on that. It is an interesting time for her to suddenly be like, "Yeah, I'd love to come back," considering they just made Charlotte the highest paid woman in wrestling history.
Mm-hmm.
So one can only imagine that her asking price was close to, if not over that.
Yeah.
To which I can honestly not really fault WWE for being like, maybe
Yeah.
not. We just did that.
So this is very like Sasha Banks, Mercedes Monet. This has been a constant with her, uh, where like the reports were last year that she was negotiating after Vince McMahon briefly retired, and they were far apart on money then. There was
Mm-hmm.
also reports that Stardom, where she wrestled in Japan, initially balked at her asking price, thinking that it was way too high. They eventually
Mm-hmm.
came to some agreement. So Sasha Banks, she's not afraid to ask for what she's worth. I
It's
think
literally in her name. Yeah.
I think maybe if she has signed on somewhere else, it'll be for a lot of money, but less of a commitment that WWE would ask. So
Mm-hmm.
perhaps AEW, perhaps she'll do a little New Japan and Stardom on the side. Maybe she's going to do one or the other and some acting. But yeah, I would have liked to see her come back to WWE because she's a huge star and it's the biggest platform. But man, what a boost she would be to AEW.
I agree.
did, did I leave you any time?
No, I said what I need to say off the
Oh
top.
yeah. No, we
Yeah.
talked.
So
Okay.
yeah.
But
So here's what I think we should do.
okay.
This is an ever evolving bit.
It
I think
is.
we should up it to 2 minutes.
Okay. Let's up it to
You
two
read
minutes.
you'll read the headline. I'll hit the timer. Use up about a minute. You use the remaining time. We discuss.
All right, let's do it.
What do we
Okay.
got? What's next on the sheet?
Next up, a big emotional moment took place at World's End on the weekend when Eddie Kingston defeated Jon Moxley in the finals to win the first ever Continental Classic. How do we feel about Eddie Kingston's big accomplishment?
I feel great about it because one, I like Eddie Kingston. Two,
Me too.
I like belts, and three, now he's got like 15 of them. I don't know. Yeah, no, I think this is a great move for Eddie Kingston. He is obviously he's the workhorse. He's relatable. He's great. I love Eddie Kingston. The Continental Classic has been great so far up to
Mm-hmm.
this point, and you know what? Mox doesn't need it. Like Mox is one of those guys that you can absolutely at any point spin into a international or world tag or world trios or any of the other 15 belts that AEW has into a program with those titles. So he doesn't really need it, but he presents a credible threat to
Oh, did I lose you? Oh no, don't freeze. Don't freeze, it'll affect the timer. Don't freeze, it'll affect the timer. Ah. Oh damn. You were frozen there. Um
I just stopped talking.
Oh. Oh, okay. Is it my turn then? All right.
Yep.
Okay, so Eddie Kingston winning the Continental or the Continental Crown, but also the Triple Crown. He
Mhm.
is a big fan of early 90s All Japan Pro Wrestling, and they had a Triple Crown in that promotion that would be defended in three different promotions. So I do think that there was a little of like, hey, let's let Eddie Kingston live out his childhood dream here because the fans love him. Everybody loves Eddie Kingston. We've mentioned this before, but I love that Eddie Kingston mentioned that he was on Zoloft while he was on AEW
Yep.
Dynamite because this guy takes the Zoloft. So I was like,
No.
yeah, all right, let's cheer. I don't know if that's common cheering for people who take the same medications as you, but it's worked for me. And I'm a big Eddie Kingston fan, so I loved seeing him beat Jon Moxley at World's End.
Hit the post. Way to go.
Yeah.
That's what they call it in the radio biz when you talk right up to when the vocal starts on music.
Oh. Oh
They
yeah.
call it hitting the
I was just
post. So
kind of winging it too. I didn't have
you
like
you
a
hit
countdown.
the post right there. Well done. Well done.
All right. So moving
What?
on to a Knicks thing to have a take about.
Mm. Hopefully it's
All
hot.
right. Also, also from World's End, Adam Copeland wins the TNT title. Then Luchasaurus uh, goes to cash in. I guess he has he won the battle royal on the pre-show, so that earned him the opportunity to challenge for the TNT title whenever he wants. And so he came to cash this in on Adam Copeland immediately after he won. Christian said, "No, give it to me. I'm the patriarch." And then Christian wins the title back immediately after losing it to Adam Copeland. How do we feel about this sequence of events that took place?
Gonna say something controversial.
Okay.
Adam Copeland's arrival in AEW was a massive story. It was a huge
Mm-hmm.
thing. It was an emotional reveal. There was a lot of real thought and feeling behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't name one of his matches since he came back.
Well, he hasn't had
Like,
many, you know.
and I feel like he and Christian are probably putting on an amazing program with so much great stuff and a literal walking dinosaur. But it's overshadowed by AEW's problem with so many titles and so many programs and so many things. Now they're getting a little bit lost in the shuffle. This match was amazing, which I'm
Yeah, it
not
was
shocked
great.
by. Um, do you think it was a nod to WrestleMania 9?
Oh, I mean, it definitely had WrestleMania 9 type feels to it in that, like, you know, the finish was not who it was supposed to, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I just felt it was kind of a screwy finish for what was supposed to be such an important match in their rivalry, you know? So,
It was very overbooked, quite
yeah,
frankly. Like
that's what yeah.
you could have had, him win that title and then the next Dynamite Christian wins it back through nefarious means. You know what I mean? Like you didn't have to do that. That's bait and switch swerve right there. And I think it overshadowed what a good match it was.
I think it overshadowed what a good match it was too. And I think you're right. Like, why not have Adam Copeland win it? Have him have that moment
Mm-hmm.
for that night or whatever, and then have him lose it on Dynamite. Like if you're gonna do two title changes, split them up, right? Like
Yeah.
title changes are a big deal. So
And it just seemed like a bummer way to end a pay-per-view too, frankly.
yeah, well, yeah. But like I don't know. That was my big thing. It's like, well, why not do like because if Edge won or Adam Copeland won, then you've got they're both at 1-1. So it's the perfect chance for a rubber match. Christian does something screwy to win back the title. Uh,
Maybe even a ladder match.
and then the other thing is like, why was there a money in the bank type gimmick attached to this battle royal? Like
Mm.
these money in the bank type things should be very like
Are we approaching things on a pole level of oversaturation?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm. Did we come close to the pole?
I know, but that's
Oh,
fine.
okay. Did we
It
go
was still
over or under the pole?
over, but it was
Oh,
still
okay.
succinct, so that's fine.
All right, all right. Well, we'll get the hang of this. Okay, let's move on to the next thing here.
Yeah, we need to come up, I think, with a reliable buzzer source.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll be our homework over the next week is to have
Yeah,
some type of. We'll get
I'll
like a
definitely
buzz
do
here.
that. Yeah.
I'll
Someone will
definitely
take care
try
of
and
that.
do that about 10 minutes before we start recording next week.
Someone
All
will
right.
take care of it.
This next thing. So we talked about how Mercedes Mone is not going back to WWE. Well, her tag team partner, Naomi, is believed to be going back to WWE. Fightful put out a report saying that sources from within both WWE and Impact Wrestling expect her to return to WWE, with some saying it could happen sooner rather than later. How do we feel about Naomi returning to WWE?
Good for her.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I don't know if she's really gone out. Like I know she's gone out and sort of, she's won the Knockouts championship
Yeah.
and she's had some good matches on the indies and stuff like that. And she's worked here and there and stuff like that. But has she, like, Cody went out and elevated himself. Drew McIntyre went out and elevated himself. I don't know if she has gone out and elevated herself. And I feel like,
I don't
honestly, I
know
feel
if
like
that
coming
was
back to
really.
WWE would be a lateral move for her. Like, I don't think it's the right time, and I think she would just get lost in the shuffle. She'd immediately be back to being Naomi with the glowy stuff, and that'd be it. Whereas
Well,
if she
yeah, I
goes out
think
and works a couple more years, I think she could, elevate herself into a real, Becky Lynch position.
I'm not sure if that's her aim. Well, I mean, like obviously, I
Hmm.
think she would take it if she wanted, but I don't think Naomi is Cody Rhodes. I don't think she is going to go outside of the machine and make a name for herself that
Yeah,
way.
but
I
we
think
said the
she'll come
exact same
back.
thing about Cody and Drew at the time.
Well, true. I think Naomi will come back and she'll be Naomi. I think a lot of
Hmm.
fans like Naomi. I think she'll get more opportunities under Triple H than she would have under Vince McMahon. Part of that's
Yep.
just because women will get more opportunities under Triple H than they will Vince McMahon. And I think she's going to get paid a lot of money. Her husband
Hmm.
already works for the company. So maybe there's a way to tie her in with all of that's going on,
Hmm.
especially with The Rock back. That would be the biggest thing that she's done in her career. So I don't think, like, obviously she went to Impact and I saw her do some stuff in Impact. It was
Yeah.
fine. She
For the
won the
guy. Yeah.
Knockouts title, but like Cody left and Cody was on a mission. Cody was going to prove that he was a larger than life like superstar. I think
Hmm.
Naomi just wanted to go and have fun with wrestling and not, and just have fun. Like
That's
I
not the
don't think.
worst.
Yeah, fun's. I'm so in favor of fun.
Super fun.
How'd we do? How'd we do on that? Over under?
That's good. It's about 2 minutes. It's okay.
Okay, okay. All right, let's
Yeah,
see how we
I
do with
think
this
we're
one.
kind of getting a feel of how to move each other through the segment. So
Yeah, but then my edibles will kick in. And I'll just forget everything.
I.
Uh,
What are we talking about?
huh? Wrestling?
Jazz
All right.
cigarettes?
So after World's End, Andrade El Idolo confirmed that he is leaving AEW. Everybody is he sent out a message thanking AEW and various people. And of course, the big assumption is he'll be returning to WWE, where of course his wife Charlotte Flair works. How do we feel about Andrade El Idolo leaving AEW and likely coming back to WWE?
Um, cool.
Yeah, right.
Sorry. Let me take
Mm-hmm.
that again. Uh, cool. Yeah, this is one of those things that we've been hearing about for like a year now.
Yeah.
That Andrade, same with Miro, they're unhappy, they're leaving, they're coming, they're staying. Oh, they signed an extension, they're doing this. It's like, yeah, Andrade, and strikes me at this point as a guy that you can move between shows, and he's a terrific talent. He'll give you solid matches, solid performances. But aside from his NXT title run, which still kind of came out of nowhere, like,
What?
okay, like, cool. Like, I'm not like, yeah, bring Andrade home. I'm just like, oh, nice. I'll be able to get to see him wrestle on Mondays instead of Wednesdays. Like,
Yeah, it's true. It's not like we're going to see any less of him. I actually thought near the end of his AEW run that they were starting to use him really well. Like he was in the Continental Classic.
mm-hmm.
Um, I guess he was doing that thing with Miro and whatever, and I guess that was all right. But the one thing that with AEW, a lot of wrestlers end up on a hamster wheel. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, he's around for a bit, has a few matches, wins, loses, but you don't really see any progression or whatever. He was kind of stuck in that for most of his AEW run.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even, like, he wasn't a guy that was getting booked on pay per views. He'd be on shows from time to time. So I think Triple H, just judging by the fact that he made him NXT champion,
Yeah.
Triple H also has a very healthy respect for guys that get over internationally. You know, we've seen how he's been treating Nakamura since taking over. Nakamura is a main part of the show. Andrade El Idolo, very popular in Mexico. So, you know, so I could see Andre El Idolo kind of benefiting from Triple H the same way Shinsuke Nakamura has, where it's like, okay, yeah, his English promos aren't going to be The Rock, but you can do stuff in the back with subtitles, or
Yeah.
you can do pre-tape stuff like they've been
He
doing with
works great with a
Nakamura.
manager.
Yeah, exactly. Put him with Zelina Vega
Mm.
again. Throw him in with the LWO storyline, and also WWE. Ever since Rey Mysterio and Batista and Eddie Guerrero were super popular back on SmackDown the day, they've been trying to recreate this connection with the Mexican fans, the Lucha Libre fans, and just because he was so popular in Mexico as La Sombra, I think they could turn him into a draw in WWE. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing what he does.
There is no losing bringing him back.
No, yeah, and AEW doesn't really lose because he was just a guy, you know. He was a guy who could have good wrestling matches, but they've got lots of guys who can have great wrestling matches. So great. All right. No, that felt like we went over.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
Well, it did, but I mean, like, we can upload 5-minute videos, so
Oh, okay. I don't know. I
we have
had it in my head.
lots of places to play.
To dip
And
our toe in.
I'm more like timing now as opposed to a countdown timer.
I'm more just kind of going with what amount of time it feels like has passed in my head and in
That's
my
good.
heart. Yeah. Okay, so
Well,
this next one.
if it gets too close, I'll just be like, Ian, shut up, shut up, just like that.
All right.
Not nothing
So,
subtle like a just like a.
so this next one, I'm really excited about
Oh,
because WWE announced today that
of
Money
all
in the
days.
Bank 2024 will take place from the great wrestling city of Toronto. How do we feel?
I'm
Money in
from
the
the great
Bank.
wrestling city of
I'm
Toronto.
from the great wrestling city of Toronto too. That's my city.
Right? You even live in it.
I live in the city.
Yeah. Well, you know, we all have flaws, but um this is great. I love that WWE is taking its international, attempts to strike out into different international waters and stuff, and including Canada, because I honestly was like, when they started doing, Berlin and France and this kind of stuff, I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, they're gonna use spots that could have been in Canada, because WWE traditionally has always done great in Canada.
Yeah.
They've had WrestleManias up here. They've had pretty much everything you can think of. Royal Rumble is the only one I can think of that hasn't been in Canada.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah. No, it
of the big
hasn't been,
ones, anyways.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Which, by the way, bring me a Royal Rumble. So yeah, I was really stoked to see they're going to do Money in the Bank in July in Toronto, and that we're sort of part of their international plans. I think that's super cool.
Well, I think definitely Toronto in 2023 made it clear that they are a top wrestling market because both WWE and AEW broke records in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto this year. So Forbidden Door did a $1.2 million gate, which at the time, but it was
Mm-hmm.
broken by All In like a month later. That was a record for AEW. WWE runs a house show in Toronto like a few days after Christmas every year because they know people like me will buy tickets for their nieces and their brother and stuff, and it's a big family outing. We go
Mm-hmm.
every year. Uh, they did it at the Coca-Cola Center. It was packed. There was 9,000 people in there, absolutely rammed. And Seth Rollins at the end of the night said that they broke a record for a non-televised event in the market. So that was the most
Mm-hmm.
lucrative Toronto house show in history. And a bunch of us yelled out, "Yeah, the ticket prices were ridiculous. You knew we had to pay them. You knew." so, so
Yeah.
it was funny. It was like we all cheered, but then I was kind of like, Yeah, okay, so maybe you didn't have to charge so much then. Clearly, you're doing quite well. Could you pass some of the savings along to us?
Nobody asked you to have a big family.
Well, I didn't even have kids. These are indirect children that I just want to seem cool to. But they look like me, so I can kind of,
Very
I get all the
confusing. I
good stuff.
understand.
Oh man. But yeah, like Toronto, like obviously there's been 2 WrestleManias here, so it's a huge venue. But like if you're a sports fan here, yeah, like this is a big deal. You want to make sure that you're still up there with the Chicagos, the LAs, and the New Yorks in terms of being a big sports market and being a big wrestling market. And yeah, so cool, cool. But yeah,
Cool.
you did worry about like okay, if they're getting money from all these, to throw an event in France and
Mm.
Australia, then it's like, oh, so these aren't going to be in North America anymore, or
Well,
but
and also, as a Canadian taxpayer, I don't really want to pay twice.
no, no, yeah, well, that's what I said. I was like, I want the Royal Rumble here. I'm not paying for the Royal Rumble to come here. Like in my taxes, I will pay the ticket price and the
Although, if
yeah.
they included a Royal Rumble surcharge in my income taxes, I would enjoy paying them more.
What if, like, in your tax return, you got like a commemorative chair from the Royal Rumble?
Oh God, I'd love that. I'd owe them a lot of chairs, but still.
Yeah, the government just comes out one day, and I hope that everyone who's not Canadian listening to this pictures the Canadian government as the Canadians from South Park. That's
Hmm.
how I want Canada known. But they just come out as like, we've made some changes. None of you are getting tax returns this year, but you're all getting Royal Rumble commemorative chairs. And the Rumble is going to be in Toronto. So if you live there, you can go see it.
The Quebec government, where I live, just paid the Los Angeles Kings $7 million to come and play 2 exhibition games in Quebec City. So
What, you couldn't get the Canadians to do it? Wouldn't more people want the Canadians?
they have an obsession with the Quebec Nordiques, and
Oh, yeah,
they
yeah.
so they're constantly they built a stadium in Quebec City without having a team to put in it,
Well, okay.
in
I
the
think
hopes
the
that they could
Nordiques are
lure
coming
a
back.
team. But
Yeah,
no, the
yeah,
Nordiques will never
exactly.
come back. The NHL
Well,
will not allow a second franchise in Quebec.
no, really? Oh,
That
man.
this is a whole other situation that we can get into on our hit hockey podcast, pucks, pucks, and more pucks. But yeah, yeah, no.
Oh, well. Well, I'm sure we went over on that one, but
Well, we can, you know, through the magic of non-destructive editing, make it good. Are
all
there
right.
more? Do we have more headlines?
Oh, we've got more headlines.
Let's
So
get some
this
more
happened.
headlines.
So this happened today. Fair warning, I haven't seen this happen. So every January 4th is Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's the biggest event they do in the year. They hold it in the Tokyo Dome.
Mm.
Um, since it happened from like 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. my time, I haven't seen it yet, but I do know one thing that happened, and it blew my mind. Well, I know a lot about what happened, but uh, Dolph Ziggler and his brother Ryan Nemeth
Hmm.
were in the Tokyo Dome, made a surprise appearance in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Dolph Ziggler then attacks David Finlay, Fit Finlay's son, at the post event press conference and basically says he wants a shot at this new NJPW global or IWGP global championship that they've made. And I did not expect Dolph Ziggler to end up in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but there he was. How do we feel about Dolph Ziggler in New Japan Pro Wrestling?
You didn't think that was going to happen?
I didn't think that was going to happen.
I kind of figured that it was either New Japan or AEW that he
I
would end
thought
up in.
AEW. I didn't
And,
think
you know,
NJPW.
well, has he signed an exclusive with NJPW,
No,
or is this
no.
one of those
So
like, I was in Japan, so I just thought I'd come by and beat up David Finlay? you know. So,
Um,
but
I'm sure he's not exclusive because they don't really
mm.
require that from a lot of their foreign talent.
So he can still show up on AEW
Oh
then.
yeah, no, he's definitely still free to show up on AEW.
And
So
it's one of those things. It's like Dolph Ziggler is like at this stage is like everyone's older brother who they thought were really really cool growing up, and now they see them as the 47-year-old accountant that they became with the receding hairline and the just like sad eyes. And so it's nice to see those guys getting work. Like I love
uh,
Dolph Ziggler, but at the same time I'm like this is a natural fit. This makes sense to me. So yeah, good for him. Good for him for getting right back on the tour. I knew he would, of all the releases, I knew he would be like he had a job. I know he wasn't
oh
worried. I
yeah,
wasn't worried for him.
I wasn't worried
Um,
that he
so
would
yeah,
have a job if he wanted it. I was kind of worried that he might be like 20 years.
mhm.
I'm good, I'll do some acting gigs or whatever I
His
can do.
stand up.
Yeah, his stand up. So
Mhm.
he also put out a video today. You know how the big thing with wrestlers is when they're a free agent, they put out a video and usually it's them escaping jail or something.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
Dolph Ziggler. He said, okay, I'm going to put out a video to announce my free agency. I don't think it really announced his free agency, but everyone took it as that. It was just him beating up zombies.
No.
He beat up a bunch of zombies, and then the very end of the video, he super kicked the head off one. Then he
Mm.
dramatically put on his glasses and goes, groovy. And then it fades to black, and you hear the wanted man, the wanted man. So that's his gimmick, the wanted man
So
nickname.
in a departure from the other videos, he's not breaking free from jail. He's going to jail.
He's going to jail.
Yes.
I gotta
Good for
say,
Dolph.
like, you could just tell it's like, okay, this is a guy grew up on the '80s. This is his tribute to Evil Dead movies. Good on you, man. Just go live your life.
Here's what
So,
I'll say about Dolph Ziggler. He never punched a coworker.
never punched a coworker.
Like that, and that's a pretty good thing to say about someone.
these,
Like,
these days, the bar's been
and
lowered to
so
that.
good for him. I'm pleased to see him out and about, and I hope that honestly, I think he's a talented enough guy that I hope he's one of these guys that goes out there and like essentially shows WWE what they're missing out on.
Yeah, because I mean, the big thing with him is like, look, this guy looks like a star, wrestles like a star. So why is he not a
Smells like one.
star? Smells like a star, makes me feel like a star.
Here's
Um,
my theory on why he was never a star, and I'll be totally honest with you. It's a stupid reason, but I think it impacted him more than he realized at the time. The name Dolph Ziggler is ridiculous.
it's a little
And
bit, yeah.
like to announce WWE World Heavyweight Champion Dolph Ziggler and this guy with the bleach blonde hair and like the kind of cocky attitude comes out and you're just like, this
Yeah.
does not like it. The name sounds so silly in conjunction with the character that it's like,
Well,
WWE has had some historically bad names, but Dolph Ziggler was always one that I was just like, I hope that was the last name that guy got to pick. Like,
oh man, I don't think Dolph turned anything down in his WWE career because when you look at what they tried with him first, well,
mhm,
first he was in the Spirit Squad, and
mhm,
then he was Kerwin White's caddy. Remember when
mhm.
Chavo Guerrero? Oh my
It
god,
was in whiteface.
that was ridiculous! I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened, and all of us don't talk
here's
about it every day.
here's gonna shock you even more. Look up what year that happened. Because
What
there's a
year did it
time
happen?
period in wrestling where you're yeah, so yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, for the time that makes sense.
No, it was
But it
post
it
Attitude
happened
Era.
shockingly late.
Yeah, yeah. like, like someone should have said something kind of late. Well, I mean, I think somebody eventually did say something.
Yeah,
But
it's up there with Beaver Cleavage and his subsequent moniker, Chaz.
oh, beaver cleavage. That's
Someone once
fantastic.
told me when Chaz debuted, someone said like, "Oh, they turned to me and they're like, you know how in wrestling video games, I'm like, uh-huh, like you always make a guy with just like white tights that does arm bars all day. I'm like, yes. They're like, you call him the wrestler? I'm like, yes, he is the wrestler. Yes.
He's
They're
he's
like,
default
that's
superstar.
Chaz. Chaz is default superstar #1.
God, that'll go down in one of the halls of terrible.
But it never gets talked about. You know, like you and I know it. People out there know it. But it never comes up. And they're like, crazy things we did in the 2000s or whatever. No one's ever like, look at this.
I think people just want to forget it.
I know. Listen, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And, wouldn't it be the greatest? The greatest. Roman Reigns lost that title and was just like, call me Chaz, man.
Does a complete rebranding out of nowhere?
Just Chaz. Actually, I was thinking about it today, and what I would really love in this build to WrestleMania, if we're going to do this with The Rock, is if at some point The Rock does something that just totally burns Roman Reigns, sings him a song or does a little dance or whatever it is The Rock does. He does it, and I want them to pull in tight on Roman Reigns' face where he just goes, suffering succotash. That's all I want out of this feud.
Just one callback to that thing.
Yeah.
Like just one mention of tater tots.
Yeah, just like, oh. We eat at the head of the table? Tater tots.
Tater tots. Man, I am looking forward to that feud. All right. We got two more stories here.
What do we got?
All right. Okay. So we got two things, both of them concerning the AEW women's division, which I know is one of YouTube's favorite topics.
Yay!
So this will go great.
Girls.
Okay, so Dr. Britt Baker, DMD.
Yes.
I remember when we were watching the old Nitros and Tony Schiavone, whenever he was calling a match in the women's division, which was only ever Medusa versus Bull Nakano, he always referred to it as the ladies division.
But it was ladies title.
Weird. The lady, like, I don't know. It's like, what?
Just still like it better than the TBS title, but yeah.
One of the ladies who has ties to Tony Schiavone, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. She talks in an interview recently about how she has taken a bit of a back seat in the AEW division. She's not on television as much. And so she said during this interview, she said that she heard from fans that a lot of them said, we want less Britt Baker. And she was like, so if that's what they want, okay, they'll get it. Let me take a step back. Here's the rest of the women. Someone else take the ball and run with it and make the women's division about you. So basically what she's saying is I stepped away to give other women more chance to shine a little bit. And that would be a good point if it wasn't for the fact that the women's division gets one segment per show. Like, what if Britt Baker gets a segment per show and then to shine a spotlight on other women, they get a second segment. So there's two segments on every episode of AEW Dynamite, thus meaning Britt Baker does not have to take a step back. She can still be on the show.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay, my first question about this.
Yes.
Is this in storyline? Because this is the type of comment that Britt Baker, the character, would definitely make. Would be like, yeah, I'm not been around. I'm letting the other girls shine because my star is so bright. That kind of thing. Is this in character? Because if it is not in character, woof. Like, that is not a nice thing to say about your colleagues, man. Like, come on. Now, if you feel like you're being overused and you go to Tony Khan, you're like, Tony, we should let other women have spotlights. And Tony's like, other women work here? Then yeah, there's a problem. And you going away for 6 months isn't going to fix that. So I don't really understand what the whole, this is kind of like when influencers, or if you follow people with high follower counts every now and again, if they don't post for 15 minutes or something, they got this like apology post up. It's like, sorry guys, been really busy with life lately. Back with an update next week. And it's like, no one asked you for that. None of us were sitting around being like, what's Britt Baker doing? Because we all know she's going to be back and she's going to be great. She's awesome. So yeah,
She's one of the.
I feel like this has to be story based.
I think it probably is story based because it's inconsistent with some of the other things that she said recently. Like she had made a complaint online about how she didn't get much promo time over the last year. It's like, well, how are you complaining about it here, but you're saying it was your choice over here?
Yeah.
So you have to be in character or whatever one of those two times. So because they're not consistent. Um, Britt Baker is one of the few women in AEW that you can say, oh, hey, she can spike a rating from time to time. Not always, but like, when you look at the quarterlies and you look at what Britt Baker segments do, hey, all right, she makes a bit of a difference. That's kind of been AEW's problem with the women's division a little bit, is that if you look at the quarterly hours, sometimes you'll have like Sky Blue versus Taya Valkyrie or something, and it didn't do a very good rating. But then it's like, well, these two have no reason to be fighting each other. This division doesn't feel important in comparison to the rest of the show. So I think they've gotten themselves in a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy here, where they've decided that we can only give so much attention to the women's division because it doesn't get good ratings. But the reason it doesn't get good ratings is because you don't give that much attention to it. And Britt Baker is someone who could help those ratings. So I really think she should be on the show if she's able to. I heard that she had a back injury, and I had thought that's why she was away. If she's healthy, put her on the show. She's great.
And then you've got Saraya, you've got Ruby Riott, you've got Toni Storm, you've got like these are big names in women's wrestling. Yeah. Like you can do this. You can do it, Tony. I promise.
They have a big enough roster. Because
here's the other thing too. Tony Khan loves his ancillary shows. Loves his collisions, his rampages, his darks, his dark elevations, his whatever. You telling me you can't put together an all women's half-an-hour YouTube show every week?
Yeah, he did that once though, and he got kind of crapped on it because people were like, "Well, why aren't they on the regular show?" They did the tag team cup or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I think
if it was a regular thing, I think people would embrace it.
I bet you if they did a women's Continental Classic like they did with the men, they would notice that this does ratings too, because it's because you've put stakes on the matches. You've made the matches important. You're like, this is an important thing. People aren't going to flip away because they're like, oh, this is an important match. Maybe Ruby Soho will advance to the semifinals, just like they did with the Continental Classic. Just do it. And then you'll create all these stars out of it that, like, I don't know. Like it just